hit your button and then speak into it, and then. Good afternoon, everyone. I call this meeting of the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board to order. My name is Sean Krausert, and I'm the chair for the meeting, for the hearing today. All questions and comments, this is very loud. Is that really, really loud? Or is it just ringing in my ears here? I'll talk from back here. All questions and comments shall be directed through the chair. Now the board members will introduce themselves, starting on my far right.
Adam Dreitzik.
Esme Comfort.
Greg Birch.
Harry Scott.
Okay. And if the clerk would introduce herself, please.
Jolene Noel.
Thank you. Now it's a single matter on the agenda here, so I'd like to make, actually I'd just like to note that it should be DB or DP 2019-050. So I'll make a motion that we adopt the agenda with that correction. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Now, before introducing the appeal by the development officer, I would now ask each member of town administration present to introduce themselves. Of course, other than the clerk, so that everybody knows who's here.
Jane Dean, permit clerk.
Okay.
Robin Denodge, communications manager.
I'm Marcus Henry, supervisor of planning.
And Tracy Tango planner.
Well, we've got a nice contingent from the planning department today. All right. Now I would ask the development officer to introduce the appeal file number before us today. And if you can speak into the mic, please. Just a reminder to people that this is recorded for accuracy with regards to the minutes. Okay.
Thank you very much. So today we're going to be talking about DP 2019.
So I'm just going to interrupt. If you could just give the DP number, and then I'm going to outline the hearing before you give your whole presentation.
Of course. It's DP 2019-050.
Great. Thank you very much. Now I'd ask the appellant to identify yourselves to the board.
I'm Abigail Kingsbury, LP.
Okay.
And I'm the owner of the property.
Okay. Welcome.
I'm John Robertson, and I'm an academic agent. I'm a contractor for
Great.
Subdivision.
I'm Chase Mullen from the Homes. I did the design of the project.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Councilor Comfort.
Sorry, I don't know when to draw this to your attention, but the date on the staff report, I think, is incorrect.
Okay. Well, let's wait for the presentation.
Oh, okay. It's just that the year is wrong, that's all.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So it's Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
And, I'm sorry, Chase. Thank you. Great, thank you. Now, does the appellant have any objection to any of the board members hearing this appeal? Okay, I'm seeing signaling no. And have you received a copy of the agenda package that's been distributed to the board? Yeah, great. Thank you. And do you have any objections to the information that's been provided? No? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so just so everybody's on the same page, the hearing process this afternoon is as follows. First, administration will make a presentation. Then the appellant or agent will speak in favor of the appeal. If there are any others that are here to speak in favor of the appeal or any correspondence in favor, it will be added at that time. Then those speaking in opposition to the appeal, if there was any, and any correspondence to opposition would be heard. And then if there's anybody speaking neither in favor or opposition, then they would speak. I have a sense that we're not going to have many other presentations today given the how full the room is. At any time, the board may ask for clarification by any of the persons speaking to the appeal. We may ask for a recess if necessary. To close, administration will be asked if they wish to provide any clarifications or closing remarks, followed by any clarification or closing remarks from the appellant. The board will then close the public portion of the hearing and go in camera, which is private, to review all the information provided, and we will provide a written decision within 15 days following this hearing. Now, the purpose of the hearing is for the appellant and affected parties to provide the board with information to the appeal. The board must base its decision on planning merits. As outlined a moment ago, any affected persons will be given an opportunity to speak, should there be any. Please ensure that all comments are directed to the board. Also, we would ask that all comments be of proper decorum and succinct. If another person has already made a point, simply state that you agree with the point and continue. If you're referring to a written document, including a map or photographs or report, a copy of those documents must be left with the clerk for the record. Okay? Does the appellant have any questions or concerns with the process as outlined? Great, thank you. Okay, so now I would ask the development officer to make their presentation with respect to this appeal.
Thank you very much. All right, so we'll be talking about DP 2019-050 today, which is located at 909 16th Street. So first, in the opinion of administration, all of the statutory requirements surrounding this appeal have been satisfied. The application was refused on March 29th, and the notice of appeal was the same day. The notification letters were sent out on April 4th, and then the appeal hearing is today, April 17th.
So I think this is probably the appropriate time to just note, as Councillor Comfort had, that the date of the report says 2018, and so if we could just just note it that it was, I assume it was 2019? Right.
Yes, that would be a typo.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you for pointing that out,
Yeah.
though.
We're not dealing with a year-old report. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, we were timely here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the site context. The site on the screen is outlined in blue. It's the subject property. It is in the R1 single-family detached dwelling district. Currently, there is a non-conforming existing single-family dwelling there. That means that the existing home does not fit with the current bylaw, which is the creek setback. The proposal is for a garage, which is an addition and it is subject to the creek setback. So we'll zoom in a little closer here, the site context. The location of the addition of the garage is facing the laneway. The arrow is right to the left of the blue arrow there. Looking on of this from the laneway, this is what currently exists on site. So the proposed garage is directly attached on the left side of the house, where there's currently a vacant carport area. The proposal drawn up. So this is the proposed addition of the garage. The proposal meets all of the other setbacks in the land use bylaw, aside from the current creek setback. So let's get into the creek setback. So the land use bylaw requires a 20-meter setback from the creek. But as we can see from the blue line and the box in the right area, the current house is 13.55 meters from the existing setback. The addition is in the blue rectangle at the bottom left along the laneway. So although this is in the bottom left area, the entire home is subject to the 20-meter creek setback. Now I'd like to draw your attention to something else as well. This first circle is where the edge of bank was measured in 2013 for the water body. Interestingly, back in 1982, it was further back, so the creek has been slowly creeping closer into the lot and the home. Now, this site is existing non-conforming. It was built before the land use bylaw requirement of a 20-meter setback, so it is grandfathered and is to remain existing. However, according to the Municipal Government Act, Section 643, Non-conforming buildings cannot be enlarged or altered unless it is allowed in the town's land use bylaw. So what does our bylaw say? Section 8614.b allows the development officer to give a maximum variance of 5 meters. So that means that we can allow the creek setback to be up to 15 meters. However, this is still beyond what is being requested, as the applicant's asking for 13.55 meters. So, the application was refused by the development officer because it was unable to approve the building addition as it exceeds the variance power to reduce the setback to 15 meters. And the Municipal Government Act does not allow non-conforming buildings to be enlarged or altered unless our land use bylaw grants this variance power. However, the Subdivision and Appeal Board is not limited in this variance power, and you can approve the setback. So considerations for this. The first one is that a single-family detached dwelling is permitted in the RU district. As well, the proposed addition is located along the front yard setback, which would be the laneway. So it's not increasing the existing rear yard setback towards the creek. And lastly, this dwelling meets all other land use bylaw regulations in the R1 district, aside from the 20-meter setback from the water body. So administration's recommendation to the Subdivision and Appeal Board is that we support granting the variance to the setback of the existing dwelling from the water body to 13.55 meters to deem the dwelling conforming and to allow for the construction of the addition, subject to the attached recommendations in the approval in Subject A. The two options for you now, the first one is that you can uphold the decision and refuse the development permit, and the second one, you can approve the development permit subject to the Schedule A conditions. Thank you, and we'll be taking any questions of clarification.
I'd open up to the board for any questions. Greg?
Just for clarity, I guess I can take my finger off that button. For clarity, what's the rear yard and what's the front yard? Looking at House 16th Street, I believe it is, doesn't extend all the way. So access is off the laneway. So what's the front and what's the rear yard, if you don't mind?
Correct. This is an interesting lot where technically it's 16th Street, but because of the creek, 16th Street actually ends quite a bit before this. So the front yard would be considered the laneway, and the rear yard is considered towards Policeman Creek. And that's because their main access to the site, say there was fire or you're getting a delivery, it would be along the laneway.
Any other questions? Okay, I've got a few. So just to clarify, and you alluded to the Section 643 of the Municipal Government Act. In our package, says Section 634. So 643 is the proper one?
Yes, unfortunately, that was another typo that we thought we caught everywhere. Apologies for that.
No problem. I did have a couple of questions around the conditions of the development permit, which is, I believe, Exhibit 4. Yeah, Exhibit 4. The land use bylaw section in question is 8.6.1.3, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the condition says .13, so we'll just make sure that we correct that. Now, the recommendation, or what you would like us to consider, is to be located 13.55 meters from the water body, but the conditions say 13.5. Is there a reason there's a difference?
Yes. So in our land use bylaw, we round only one decimal place.
Okay.
And in this case, because it's 13.55, it makes more sense to round down.
Right.
And this also gives a little bit of flexibility in case it happens to be 13.54 instead.
Perfect, because I know when we're deliberating, I know that question would come up, should we be changing it? So I'm glad that you've answered that, so thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to ask a question, because you brought it up. When you say the edge of the water is moving closer, I mean, is this a continual thing, or is it a seasonal back and forth, or like, should we be concerned about this variance being obsolete in a short period of time because the water's moved closer?
There is the surveyors, there's like the Surveys Act,
Okay.
determines how a high water is measured, and it shouldn't be seasonally. So when they go to do a high water measurement, it's not, well, did you go on this day or that day?
Right.
And I don't know exactly how it works, but no, it shouldn't change seasonally, but yes, it will migrate over longer periods of time. Like the last time this survey was done, 1982 to 2013, it does change.
Is there some sort of, just out of curiosity, is there some sort of marker that is placed as to where the measurement is taken? So
No, they don't.
years from now, either this appellant or somebody else isn't seeking another variance for the exact same thing?
Yeah,
It's
Could be.
it's just the way it is?
just the way it is, yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Drizzt?
Is this property in any kind of identified flood areas?
Pardon me, what was that?
Is there any identified flood areas here?
It's not. Policeman's Creek, because it's like a groundwater spring, it's not subject to the same sort of flooding that the Bow River is. So there might be some minor fluctuations seasonally, but it's not like a flood. Interestingly, kind of related, when this property was built was before we had our high groundwater regulations in the town. So the house was actually built lower than the high groundwater. So groundwater, yes, is definitely something that they need to consider here. So when they did a previous edition in the 90s sometime, they were in front of the SDAB as well for an existing non-conforming because the house was lower than the groundwater level.
Okay. Mr. Birch?
Just, if I may, to extend on that. So in the land use bylaw or any other document, is there a minimum elevation for the property grade or the building elevation?
For new builds there are, but unfortunately, as Tracy mentioned before, a lot of the homes were built before we had this knowledge. And so with existing non-conforming, it allows the house to exist, so that way we don't have to go and bulldoze down a bunch of old houses.
Just if I may, extending that, what is the requirement if it was a new building? I'm thinking, what's the grade that would be requested if it was bulldozed and they were starting afresh? And feel free to look it up.
Yeah, so we have that in our engineering design guidelines. It's drawing OTH4, which we then also did put into our land use bylaw, and we kind of updated that drawing. So if you look in land use bylaw section 7, it's the overlays. So there's the high groundwater level in section 7 point, I want to say 4, something like that. Yeah.
So sorry, I was rushing to get here. I wasn't sure I was going to make it. I didn't bring my land use bylaw copy. Could you tell us what the elevation is from that figure, if you know?
Are we linked to the
And
G-Drive right now, or did we sign on?
yeah, and in the essence of time, and for the matter of time and stuff, I'm happy to have it answered later. It doesn't have to be right now.
Like 1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
We actually have this information in our GIS software.
Who wants to load?
So when that elevation came in, the previous homeowner was in front of the SDAB, and they got the variance to make the home existing to that groundwater elevation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's in compliance based on the variance that was granted previously? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we do have that variance, the variance that was granted for it previously.
909 16th Street. Our engineering department created a map tool for us so that when we look at applications, it measures what the groundwater elevation is in parts of the downtown area. So this is the tool that Marcus is pulling up for us to look at.
Yeah, while we're waiting for this, can I ask, when you say it meets all, this application meets all the other requirements for setbacks, et cetera, does the new build meet what the town is looking for as far as groundwater, protection, mitigation, whatever?
So, yes, so as far as the land use bylaw and other aspects, architectural guidelines, setbacks, the garage proposal meets everything else. Of course, the entire building is subject to the creek setback, but based on the existing non-conforming clause, we are able to approve it. The SDAB has the option to, if you believe necessary. So Marcus has pulled up this map for us. So the main blue square in the middle here says that all of these homes are subject to the groundwater elevation. So this one is
1311.2.
yes.
So I'll just speak to this very quickly. As you go around South Canmore, that's where we have like the flood elevation design requirements for like a 1 in 100 event. So our engineering department's actually explored all the various like elevations, let's call that what it, like had to be met within the valley bottom. So they've like gone around and they've broken it up on like a per block basis. So for each one of the blocks within South Canmore, you can see here in blue we have, you can see just around here in these blue blocks, they each have their own like elevation which is set. And to be clear as well, that's only applicable to like the main floor, where there is habitable space. So in this instance, where we have the garage addition, the habitable space is above, so well above any sort of flood elevation grade, which would be a concern to us on the parameters of this application and what it is, because we're not looking at the existing home, which is was built back in the 90s and before, so that would not apply to this.
Right. Okay. So it's in compliance with regards to all of the elevation.
Yeah.
And what was the elevation?
1311.2.
And do you have a copy of the plot plan in front of you? The grades up at the front of the property are, and like there's one right where the proposed addition is, it's 1311.28. So it's actually higher than the flood level there. It's the rear of the property, like the back, so the northeast corner of the property is 1310.87. So the back side of the house, closer to the water body, is what is lower than the flood elevation level.
Great.
So you can see what.
Sorry, not flood, high groundwater.
Yeah. So if you're looking at this map up here on the screen, you can kind of see right here in the back corner, you're hitting those lower elevations. So around here, 1310.87 on this corner, 1311.15. So that's where the conflict would come. But again, that's not something that we're looking at with this application. So everything else is in conformance with land use bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Burke?
No, just I feel the need to express, perhaps especially to the applicant, why I'm asking the questions. So my understanding of existing non-conforming uses is house is built at one period of time. Land use bylaws and information on a variety of things, including groundwater, become known subsequent to the house being built. Mm-hmm. And so bylaws change, and so a house becomes existing non-conforming. The question before us today will be whether we want to essentially waive that existing non-conforming condition and allow the addition of the garage, etc. So, to me, my decision is going to be, well, are we going to allow this and extend the life of the house? The other alternative, and I mean, so we'll extend it, be much more livable, so it'll sit there for a longer time. The alternative is, no, it's built incorrectly, and if we don't allow this, it makes it inadequate faster. And so it stays, everything's good, you live in it for another 20 years, but instead of having it rebuilt and expanded and made so it sits there for a long period of time, at some point, by not making the decision, we just essentially say, nah, that one should at some point be knocked down. I'm not saying that what the decision is, and I'm sure I understand your point of view, and it's not my decision, but this is why the line of inquiry, in my mind, I'm trying to say, okay, should this be something we extend the life of by allowing the addition? Or, boy, is this such a problem, we should just, you know, essentially nix any changes now and just let it go, whatever the life is. It looks like a beautiful house, it should last a long time, but that's why I'm asking these questions.
And
Thanks.
thank you, Mr. Birch, for that explanation. And of course, just to be clear, nobody's talked about this prior to this event, and that's just Mr. Birch's particular take on it. It may not be shared by other board members. Okay. Any other questions of Development Officer? Yes, Mr. Scott.
When they established in 2013, they established the new high water, that would have been the year that we had a 100-year flood, which I hope that won't happen for a long time. So really, it is historically the highest. It's not necessarily what it has been or will be for the next 20 years. It's just simply a one-time event. Am I correct?
I can't speak for McElhaney. They're the ones who conducted the survey and determined where the bank head is. We'd have to reach out to them to find out when they did the survey and what their methods were. But typically water bodies, they're living things, they move, but slowly. You don't notice a water body suddenly jumping over several meters within the span of a year. It's gradual and over time as things like erosion take place. So,
But in 2013, did the town not, I think, probably hire McElhaney to do this so that you could establish your map, the new map?
No, the town does not hire surveyors to resurvey our water bodies. This was done at the request of some private landowner. Okay. So the surveyors, what happens is if they go out to do a survey, they need to survey the water body. And they look at the high, what's called the high water level, like the top of bank. And as I mentioned before, it doesn't change just based on seasonality. And Policeman's Creek is a spring, like it's a groundwater. It isn't subject to the same sort of flooding as the Bow River up and down. Even still, the Bow River is a different level every year. The surveyors generally don't change year to year what the bank, like the top of bank, that's established over a longer period of time. Unless, for example, if you have a massive amount of river erosion, the bank suddenly changes. But this is established off of criteria like type of vegetation in this area, like what's actually being subject to water year after year after year after year. But so this was done by McElhaney for a private surveyor. What hasn't changed, though, is even though it's shown on this plan of survey, it doesn't actually get registered at land titles. So land titles doesn't know that the water body has changed unless the person who has that survey done goes to land titles and has the plan updated. But the surveyor does this because as the water body, as the top of bank moves, that piece of water, like that back of the property now, is technically crown land. It is no longer in the parcel of the homeowner. That is now subject to ownership of the province.
So I just want to bring focus back then with regards to discussion of high water levels and whatnot. So the facts that are being presented to us is that the edge of the house is, the closest edge of the house to the water body is 13.55 meters away, right?
correct.
And the with regards to high water marks, there is no variance required because, I mean, it's already been granted. This house has already been granted a variance with regards to the water level, and, correct?
Correct.
And the addition is complying with all of the regulations regarding high water levels.
Correct.
Correct, okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions before we move to the appellant? Seeing none, I would now ask the appellant or agent to make your presentation with respect to the appeal. Mr. Robertson.
Hey. Hello, board. My name is John Robertson. I am the contractor with Mountainside Property Services representing owner Abigail Kingsbury, for this appeal. Now, I know that we're not supposed to be repeating each other here, and they did touch on a lot of points I wanted to make, so I apologize if I do repeat.
Oh, that's
this.
fine, that's
Yeah.
fine. Whatever you think is important, that
Yeah.
little note is usually for, if we have a lot of people coming to speak to the appeal, that we're
Right.
not having person after person after person say the same
Make the same
things. But
point.
please, I would like you to make sure you put forward whatever you think is important.
Very good.
Okay.
So the proposed addition in question is a single-car garage with minimal square footage above. And as mentioned previously and in the staff report, this proposed addition meets all development regulations and setbacks, including groundwater, creek setbacks, all of that. The existing dwelling was originally built conforming and was approved through the permitting process. However, due to changes in regulations and creek bank locations, it is now deemed existing non-conforming. We are simply asking for a variance on the creek setback, which would deem the existing dwelling conforming, which would allow us to proceed with the proposed addition. Abigail and her husband Luke have a young family and have lived in this dwelling for a number of years. They love the area, but more so love the property they live on. They are simply trying to invest in that property to better suit their needs for many more years of enjoyment to come.
Great.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
I'll just open up to any questions from the board. Adam?
What's the addition going to be used for?
A garage, and then the living space above is just for family living. No specific uses. Yeah. Are you wondering about suites or anything like that?
It's an open-ended question, but if you got into
There's
that,
no,
I
they're
would
not putting
ask
it, they're not
for the-
putting a suite above, if that's
Yeah.
what you're wondering, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Birch?
Sorry, two questions. The building, the elevation drawings seem to show a crawl space or something that would be lower than the floor of the garage. I'm just wondering, do they get wet?
There is
currently?
no crawl space
There
below.
isn't? So
That's
I'm
just a
reading those
footing,
wrong.
yeah.
Oh, that's just a footing? Okay,
Yes.
I'm reading it wrong.
Yeah.
So then the second question is more pertinent. Do you have to change the grade at the front of the property? Actually, the rear yard, but at the front where the garage is to get that garage pad out onto the ground?
Shouldn't have to, no.
So it essentially, the pad for the garage comes out at more or less the existing ground elevation right
That's
there?
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Adam?
Yeah, the town's proposed some conditions on the permit if we were to grant the permit. There's one here about the drainage. It looks like the property can't drain into the adjacent lots and it can't drain onto the street. How do you plan to drain the water from this new part of the?
I've yet to verify that with the town. We were originally just planning on doing what you always do with swales going out to your property line. That's what's existing there, and that's typically what you do. If the town is going to require any dry wells or anything like that, then we just need to figure that out with the town.
From our perspective, should we grant the appeal and approve these conditions, we just have to set the condition and then the town makes sure that it's met.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Birch?
I'm sorry, I want to make sure I read your elevation drawing correctly. So if I don't know if you can put those up, but
You have the file here if you don't have.
and I don't need to see it up. It's drawing A4.
Pardon me?
A4 in your submission, yes.
Okay.
So it's looking down at the bottom right corner, it's drawing A4.
Yeah, we can put it up on the overhead.
This is the side elevation?
It's a side elevation, yes.
I have it in front of.
You have it? So if we can wait for it to come up, but in the interim, if you look at the slab that's shown in that drawing, and then to the left of it, it says existing space. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, so that's a basement in the existing house.
Ah,
Yeah, so
so
the
it
garage
is
slab-
below.
Yeah, the existing space, that is below grade.
Okay,
But our garage, our addition isn't going below grade.
yeah. Okay, so then my question, I'll ask again, does the basement flood?
No, it hasn't had any
Has it?
flooding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. For the people who might be wondering what I'm thinking about, you might see it here, but
Yeah, I see it.
it's,
Great.
yeah.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you very much, Mr. Robertson.
Thank you, guys.
Now, I would ask, is there anyone here that would like to speak to this application, either for, against, or neutral? I guess I'm looking at you, sir, just because you're the only one that's not been introduced, but, okay. Perfect, okay. So there's nothing that you wanted to share with the board today? Okay, great, thank you. So I won't go through all the questions of speaking for, against, and neutral anymore. All right, so I would ask then, does the administration have any closing remarks, comments, or clarification?
Yes, I just want to be clear with the application that's ahead of us, or like before you guys today, is that, there are lots of questions about the existing house, whether or not there's flooding, whether or not the elevation's been, set appropriately for that house. And I just want to be clear that the application at hand is not looking at the existing house, it's looking at the addition. What we're looking at is a variance to the setback of the existing house, which should be looked at from, what's existing on site, versus what's proposed. So what's proposed is the garage, and if the garage was in the back of the house along the creek, there would be more of an issue, but because it's in the front, it's not changing any of the rear of the backyard, so there's less concern from us in that regard. So I'd just like you to think about that when you guys are making your recommendation on the application, that it is for the garage, not the existing house.
Mr. Henry's, just if I might paraphrase you,
Sure.
the only issue that makes this house non-conforming is its proximity to the water body.
To the water body, yes, which is why we're here today. Otherwise, we would have the authority to grant a variance to the application.
Great, thank you. Okay,
That's all.
thank you for that clarification. Does the appellant have any closing remarks? It seems like you were just speaking a moment ago. Do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make? You don't have to.
No, it's
Okay,
straightforward.
great. Thank you very much. So I need to ask this question. Do you feel like you've had a fair hearing today?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So now this hearing is concluded, and in accordance with provincial legislation, the board is required to hand down its decision within 15 days from today's date. We try to do so quicker than that, so we're not going to make you wait to the last moment. No decision is binding until the board issues a written decision. Okay? So now I would like to make a motion to adjourn the hearing today. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We're going to, before we go in We're good? Okay, I call this business meeting of the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board to order. First item for business is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, Madam Clerk? No? In that case, I'll move adoption of the agenda as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Item 3, adoption of minutes. First of all, the March 21st, 2019 appeal hearing meeting. Now, I did have something I wanted to add here, and I've already provided the wording to our clerk, and that is, I thought we should set the context for the vote for chairperson and the vice chairperson, since we had just done it in the meeting before. And so this is what I'm asking be inserted, and you can let me know if you have any concerns, but it's just, as it is right before the vote for chairperson, as per section 9.2 of the Town of Canmore Subdivision and Development Appeal Board bylaw, comma, and this being the first meeting of the calendar year, comma, a chair and vice chair are to be selected, colon. And so it just sets anybody reading the minutes, as I'm sure people come and do. I just want to read some SDAB minutes. Let's just get at this. And they'd be confused there. Okay, so no concerns with that addition? Okay. Okay, in that case, any other errors or omissions? Seeing none, I move adoption of the, let me get the right wording here. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the appeal hearing from Thursday, March 21st, 2019, with that one addition. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we will look at the minutes of the business meeting for that same date. Are there any errors or omissions in that? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the business meeting of March 21st, 2019 as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We don't have a scheduled meeting, no other business, so I move that we adjourn this meeting. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay.